Hello and welcome to GEC Important Talks. This is a podcast series presented by the team at Global Education Connection, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing children who are affected by conflict or natural disaster with resources like educational materials and art supplies. As a part of this podcast, we want to talk about important topics related to children, their human rights, and their education. Of course, neither of us is an expert on these topics. We speak only to our knowledge, personal experiences, perspectives, and opinions, but there are many credible online sources for further information. Today we have myself, Kathryn Slaughterback, and
Carter Beck
as your hosts. And today we're going to be discussing the 2024 Paralympic Games. But before we get into that, here's just a quick word about our business sponsorship program.
Yes. So GEC is able to continue the great work that we do for refugee children all around the world based off of the generous contributions from you, our listeners, but also from individual donations, business sponsorships, and grants. Now, business sponsorships are pretty unique because they represent a way that a business can partner with us in a certain way that shows that that business aligns with our mission. So if you yourself have a small business or you work for a business that might want to partner with us, please reach out to us on our website.
Yeah, thank you all so much, and stick around to the end of the episode where you can learn about the other ways that you can support the work that we do here at GEC. So, as I said, we're discussing the Paralympic Games today. They just kicked off in Paris, France. Carter and I briefly, I believe, touched on this on our episode when we discussed Disability Pride Month and the ADA. But for those who are unfamiliar, the Paralympics are essentially the Olympic Games, but specifically for athletes with disabilities. So they don't involve every single athletic game represented at the traditional Olympics. They just include, I believe, 22 events. That's still an amazing feat that they managed to put together a games that has that many different events in it. I believe that there are over nearly 4,500 athletes involved in this. It's a very large turnout. Obviously, I think the regular Olympics tends to get a bit more attention than the Paralympics, but for those who are able, you can, here in the US, watch it on NBC Sports. For the first time ever, they are showcasing every single event. They hadn't done that at the last one. They had only showcased 19 out of the 22. So this year you can finally see all of the 22 sports that are being put on. And if you can't watch it live on NBC, it's available on Peacock. And I believe in other countries, they're also streaming to YouTube. So there are various ways that you can go out and watch this. Obviously, NBC is uploading parts of this to YouTube as well. So even if you can't watch it in real time, you can always watch some of the highlights later on. But I think during the Paris Olympics just a couple weeks ago, that was just such a great way to be able to have every country come together and be able to support the phenomenal athletes that we have. And I think now is really the time to come together and continue doing that, because the Paralympics are just so amazing, and I really want to see as many people as possible go out and watch them, because it's a phenomenal feat of athletics that I think deserves to be celebrated just as much as the regular Olympics.
So Kathryn, you mentioned before we start recording that you watched the opening ceremony. How was that?
Yeah, it was really good. It was kind of like, it's always fun to see how each country dresses up their athletes, because everyone saw during the regular Olympics, like all of the athletes on the boats coming through, and instead the Paralympians came down one of the major avenues in France, and they were wearing, the U.S. Olympians were wearing the exact same outfits as the Paralympians, so that was just such a great moment to see that all of them kind of dressed up and still representing the U.S. It was so kind of heartwarming to watch. I think, you always get that sense of pride in your country for being able to see the amazing athletes we're able to put forward. And even now, seeing all of the different people who have, overcome so many challenges to be able to get to the Paralympics in the first place, it was just so heartwarming. And then, of course, it's France, so they've got all of the different, performances going on. I think there was a lot said about their performances for the regular Olympics opening ceremony. So I'd love to see what the internet thought about the Paralympics opening ceremony. There was this performance using pianos. where they had like dancers like rigidly dressed up in suits, like kind of like playing the piano to represent kind of like the rigid way that society looks at certain things, and then having disabled performers come in like more vibrant colors to be able to show how creative we really can be. And I thought it was a really interesting way to present that. But I think it got the message across really well, and it was such a beautiful performance to watch.
That's pretty neat. I look forward to
Yeah.
watching that. So I don't have, like you said, NBC, Peacock, or like a YouTube subscription, but I know that NBC, the YouTube channel, does show highlights or even the full event and like the full opening ceremony afterwards. You just don't get to see it like first and like live. So I do look forward
Yeah.
to watching these highlights and watching like full games or matches or ceremonies. So I'm looking forward to watching those on YouTube.
Yeah, and like I said, I think there are a bunch of different ways that people have the ability to watch. It depends on the country that you're in. Like I said, obviously each country has their own broadcasting channels that are covering the Olympics. Um, but I think this is a really great opportunity just for us to be able to visually see how diverse athletics can be, and how amazing it is that we can celebrate that diversity in a way that maybe isn't seen at like the traditional Olympics.
Yeah, there are some sports that aren't included in the Olympic Games that are included in the Paralympic Games. In preparation for the podcast, I went on and looked up the Paralympic website has this page. It's on Olympics.com slash Paris 2024. 50 things to know about the Paralympic Games. There's some pretty interesting things. Did not know about a lot of these, but let's see. I want to kind of talk about some of them. There was one. It's starting in the London 2012 Paralympic Games. The guides, so the people that run alongside the para athletes and the para triathletes, also known as the pilots. So if there is an award given to one of the athletes, the guide also receives a medal as well.
That's amazing.
So I thought that was pretty cool, and they only started that recently. But I mean that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I know that this year, the medals that all of the Paralympians receive also have Braille on them.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. There are some sports that aren't included in the Olympic Games. I'm trying to find them, but some other interesting facts are that no prosthetics are allowed in para swimming. Some swimmers compete without the aid of accessories. So no prosthetics at all in the swimming events. Wheelchair basketball uses the exact same height hoop that the Olympic Games do. So there's no difference at all. It's all about skill and dedication. So I thought that
That's incredible.
pretty interesting. Wheelchair tennis, that has got to be pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then there's blind, the balls used in blind football, which I mean in the US we call soccer, but blind football and the goal ball are filled with bells, and so that way they make a noise when they're rolling around so that the players can locate them. And all the players, even if they're like partial blindness, have to wear blindfolds. So everyone is going around based off of, really, it's almost like a form of echolocation, whereby you have to like listen and anticipate where the ball is going to be based off of the sounds of the bells inside the ball. So that's got to be so much harder than traditional football.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be. I couldn't even imagine doing that as someone who's fully able-bodied.
Yeah.
Like, that's absolutely insane.
And so para taekwondo is for athletes with upper limb disabilities. So Kyokugi will be the only taekwondo discipline on show at the Paralympic Games, and so that was in Tokyo. So really, just for lower body, I guess, hits for points. There's also sitting volleyball. Players leave their chairs at the side of the court and move around on their bottoms by using their arms.
Wow.
And then wheelchair rugby. Wheelchair
With
rugby
how
is.
full contact rugby is, just like
I'm looking at
I
the.
couldn't imagine doing that in a
I'm looking
wheelchair.
at the wheelchairs used. So they use a round ball instead of like that oblong spherical ball that is used in traditional rugby, but it's played indoors with a round ball. And I'm looking at some of these images, but like the wheelchairs look like they are really, really beat up, but they're like metal and made for full contact. It's
That's gotta have like insane insurance.
it's pretty wild. There is also a refugee team, just like at the Olympic Games. There's a refugee team at the Paralympic Games. I believe at the Rio Games there were 2 members on the refugee team and 6 athletes at the Tokyo Paralympic Games. I don't know how many at the Paris Paralympic Games.
I think it might be more than that.
Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think the group, at least that like they showed walking down the avenue, had a larger number than that, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Um,
It's really amazing. So wheelchair
Yeah.
basketball players may not push their wheels more than twice when they have the ball on their thighs, or they will be punished, similar to the traveling violation in traditional basketball. So a lot of the same rules, but there's just some adjustments. But imagine like trying to hold the ball with your legs and then still trying to be able to push the wheels. Like you can easily make the argument that some of these sports with the adjustments made for para athletes are more difficult than the traditional equivalents.
Oh, absolutely. I think that we're able to make these adjustments in the first place is incredible, but we still obviously need to acknowledge that it's not just the differences in how the average Olympian is able to perform, but also the restrictions that are placed on them because of how the game has to be played.
Yes.
Like, I don't think, I think it would be incredibly hard to transition, the people who performed in the Olympic rugby match to like the Paralympic rugby match. I think that would be such a different game field for them that there would have to be something like they couldn't just do it off the top.
Yeah, like rugby players know they have to definitely emphasize and focus on their leg muscles to be able to push. But with wheelchair rugby, like you can't use your leg muscles because you have to use the chair, so you're only using your upper body at that point. And so at that point, they would probably have para athletes would definitely have an advantage. Let's see here. Looking at some of these other ones, there's also wheelchair fencing. The athletes compete in wheelchairs that are fastened to the floor using a special device. As the competitors cannot move forwards or backwards, they remain very close to the opponents, thereby guaranteeing high-intensity matches. That would be amazing to watch.
I think that sounds more entertaining than regular fencing.
Like you can't move, so you almost have to be more skilled.
Yeah,
because you can't move forwards and backwards. You have to be more skilled with the implement, the sword. Let's see some of these other ones. The wheelchairs used in wheelchair racing allow the athletes to race up to speeds of 36 kilometers an hour. For us Americans.
For those of us who don't know how kilometers work,
that is 22.37 miles per hour. So
wow,
very fast. And let's look up the fastest Usain Bolt. I mean, everyone knows Usain Bolt at this point. So Usain Bolt reached a top speed of 27.33 miles per hour. So these athletes are very, very fast.
Yeah.
Let's see, what are some of these? I'm down the last couple of facts here. There's Paralympic powerlifting. Their competitors are separated into categories depending not on their disability but body weight. So, paracycling, wheelchair, like I said, wheelchair basketball, para archery, para triathlon. Cool, very cool. There's lots of really interesting tidbits that if people are interested can find out more on the Olympic website. But also, if you're not able to watch the games right now, definitely take advantage and go on YouTube, watch some of the highlights. Um, each team has their own page in association with the Olympic website. If you want to learn more about the athletes, it's just a very very cool way to be able to celebrate and to highlight the athletic achievements of these individuals from their respective countries.
Yeah, and like Carter said, even if you don't have the opportunity to watch, you can always encourage your friends and family to watch too. I know obviously the Olympics were a great time when everyone came together, and even if you weren't watching the Olympics, everyone was still talking about it. So I think we should really carry that momentum, that kind of pride of our country and our athletes into the Paralympics, because they're still part of the Olympics. They deliberately call it the Paralympics to say that it's part of this.
Yep.
Even though it follows afterwards, the International Olympic Committee work very closely with the International Paralympic Committee to put this on. That's why it takes place in the same city as the traditional Olympics, as a symbol that they are together, that even if they're not, the same games, they are still the games, that they represent the same values and ideals, and really want to just demonstrate how phenomenal every athlete is, regardless of their country, their gender, or their physical able-bodiedness. So not only is this an opportunity to really take pride in the disabled community, but also to take pride in your country and our ability to have these games in the first place. Obviously, things like this aren't new. Countries have had, clubs or sports for disabled people to participate in sports going back to the 1800s, but it was only in, I believe, 1960 when they really created the Paralympics. The UK is actually the country that really pushed for that, which is why Paralympic kind of flame comes from the UK, because they are the ones that really championed this and got it kickstarted back in 1960. So I think we really need to carry that flame forward if we're going to continue the metaphor and really just keep pushing not only for disability rights, but also disability visibility, and are able to recognize the phenomenal people that we have to do this in the first place.
Very cool. So how long are the games going on for?
I believe they started on the 28th and they run until September 8th. So
very cool. So we've got a good another week and a half left of the games. Plus, also this kind of gives the host country a time to iron out any of the issues that arose during the Olympic Games to then rectify them for the Paralympic Games. I know one of the issues with the the athletes village was a lot of the athletes were complaining about lack of animal-based proteins. And I wonder if they made any changes to that for the para-athletes.
Yeah, I hope so, because a lot of athletes have kind of come forward and said that Paris did not do a great job of adequately taking care of them. And I think anyone who's kind of been watching the news has also seen the drama going on with gymnastics that happened in Paris. So I'm really hoping that Paris corrects this for the Paralympians, and we're able to move forward with a much smoother game than we saw just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and so that this having the Paralympics immediately after the Olympic Games just gives the country, the host country, the ability to rectify whatever issues popped up during the Olympic Games. So, any sports that you're particularly interested in watching?
Well, now I'm interested in watching fencing and rugby just to see what happens. I love swimming, so I'll inevitably end up watching the swimming and volleyball. Those are my two really big ones. So I'm just honestly looking forward to all of it. I think that it's all going to be really entertaining to watch. Even the sports I'm not super familiar with or a huge fan of, I still watch the regular Olympics for that. So I was planning on doing it with the Paralympics too. So I'm hoping everyone else would do the same, because I think no matter what, we're going to see some really great performances and some really great games. I'm super looking forward to it.
Yes, and of course, the way to be able to spread awareness about the games and to bring more attention to them is to also follow them on social media. And so, like if there's a team that you're particularly interested in, or also just you want to follow the games in general, you can follow like NBC Sports, or like the Olympics or Paralympics. They're going to be definitely. This is the time where they're going to be posting the most amount of content. And so, if you like something, go ahead and share it, like it, and comment on it. That's only going to help with the engagement metrics for the social media platforms. So that way, the Paralympics are going to get more attention and notoriety, as they should.
Yeah, and the more attention that the Paralympics gets, the more attention disabled athletes get in general, which could lead to more funding and more opportunities opening for disabled athletes, and expansion on programs to even get disabled people into sports in the first place.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Cool. Because I think when we talked about Disability Pride Month just a couple weeks ago, we had that whole conversation about the park, of having the disabled park for kids. And I think that's a really great way to also look at athletics, that if you don't have the training that they need, or like facilities that can accommodate their needs, they're not going to be able to use them and not going to be able to get into athletics like someone else would. So I think that's something that this could be a really great push for, to be able to raise awareness, raise money, to advocate for more facilities for disabled athletes. Because, the United States sent 220 athletes to this event. But that's still not even half of the number of regular athletes that we sent. And sure, there aren't as many events, so it doesn't necessarily need as many athletes. But I still think that speaks to, looking at the number of how many athletes were sent is like kind of a great way to gauge how many athletes could we be sending if we had more facilities, more money invested, more ways for people to get involved in sports to begin with. Yeah, that was something that caught my eye. Like, the United States, for the traditional Olympic Games, I think we sent the most athletes. Like, we sent over 500 athletes. I think we were the number one country. But for Paralympics, we were fourth.
But so I think there's also like the difference of like proportionality with like the number of athletes trying out for the Olympic Games and then getting in a slot. So like proportionally, there's probably a difference whereby there's going to be a lot less athletes that are trying out for like the Paralympic team. So there's a smaller pool to be able to select from.
Yeah, but there should be that's not necessarily saying that, the pool is smaller. I think the pool should be bigger. I think we should be providing the resources for the pool to be bigger.
I think what's kind of cool is we're seeing some athletes from the Olympic Games also kind of championing and telling people, hey, like the Paralympics are going on now, and bringing awareness to them. Like, for example, like Alona Meyer from the women's rugby team. Like, she's been a great champion and ambassador for watching the Paralympics, and also posting on her social media. So like that's another thing that like I really appreciate are the athletes that are supporting each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, I think it's going to be a fun week and a half left in the Paralympic Games, and like you said, there's some pretty cool sports that I'm definitely looking forward to watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it doesn't just end at the Paralympics next year in 2025 in Tokyo. There are the Deaf Olympics, which are a series of sporting events, also sanctioned by the International Olympic Committee, at which only deaf athletes compete at an elite level. Unlike the Olympics, the Paralympics, and the Special Olympics, the athletes cannot be guided by sound, such as starting whistles, bullhorn commands, or referee whistles. So that adds another layer of challenge to it. There are also, like I just mentioned, the Special Olympics, which is the world's largest sport organization for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. to provide year-round training and activities to 5 million participants and unified sports partners in 172 countries. So I think that we are able to come together and celebrate all of these amazing and various ways that sports can be performed on an international level is incredible. So also keep your eye out for the Deaf Olympics next year and the Special Olympics. So Special Olympics took place back in June of this year, but I believe there are still various events going on this year. For example, there are events going on later this summer, and in this November, a fall festival is being held at Villanova University for the Special Olympics, specifically in Pennsylvania. So you can always check out your local or regional Special Olympics committee to see if there are any events going on near you. But I think we will wrap it up here for today. But yeah, before I get into my little outro spiel, here's just a quick word about our coloring book.
Yes. So one of the ways that we're able to help kids is we actually created our own coloring book. It's got 30 different animals and facts about these animals, and it's a great tool for kids to use to draw and to learn. But our first coloring book, you can currently buy that on Amazon, and it's also a great way to be able to support the work that we do. So if you get a chance, please go. You can purchase that coloring book and also leave us a review. I appreciate it.
But that's not the only way you can support us. As always, linked in the description below, I have our Patreon, which directly contributes to the work we do here at the podcast. Please check that out. Also linked in the description below is our website. On our website, you can view the other incredible work that we've done with our think tank publication. Anyone who's been listening long enough knows that we've had John on a couple times to talk about the phenomenal work he's doing with the think tank, so I encourage you all to go check it out. It's truly amazing, the ability he has to talk about such incredible topics in a way that is easy for everyone to understand. We've got quite a few publications out now, so I encourage you all to go read them. But also on our website is our shop, where you can check out all of the various products that we sell. They also go directly to helping the work we do here at GEC. Like I always say, I love my mug, I love my tote bag. I am a girl who loves her tote bags, and I use that one constantly despite having 20 million of them, to the eternal consternation of my mother. So I encourage you all to go check them all out. They're really amazing quality. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us this week. This has been GEC Important Talks, hosted by the team at Global Education Connection. You can follow us on all social media platforms to see what we're up to and the other work that we're doing all around the world. Like I said, you can also check out our website, www.globaleducationconnection.org, to find out more about who we are, what we do, and how else you can best support us. So thank you all so much for listening, and we hope to have you all back next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.